Yeah. What's going on, everybody? It is Dr. Jamar Montgomery, drjamarmontgomery.com here. Thank you for everybody that's rocking with me right now. Uh, you know, there's been a whirlwind of executive actions that have happened in these first 30 days, 30 days of President Trump being in office, and it's incredible. It's incredible. To see the level of speed, the level of intentionality that that President Trump is moving with. And so, one of the major things that people have had a major issue with was with his executive action on executive order on DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion, which were programs that on their face were designed to help underrepresented groups, uh, and particularly, we hoped, at least black folks hoped, that it would put a lot more black people in positions of power, of positions of influence, positions of importance. And what we saw is that DEI helped more people that were non black than it did people who were black. It helped the LGBT community, it helped white women, it helped immigrants, it helped all these other marginalized groups instead of the prototypical marginalized group of American Africans or African Americans or black people, however you want to do it, black Americans, right? And so, you know, there were a lot of a lot of issues with the way that DEI programs were implemented, and I had problems with it. I had problems with it. But when I started thinking about this executive orders that he had towards HBC, towards DEI, and how it was targeting also schools, and how schools were funding was going to be affected, I started to think about HBCUs. And HBCUs, for those that do not know, HBCU stands for Historically Black College University. I graduated from an HBCU. I graduated from Southern University Agricultural Mechanical College and Southern University Law Center. Now, the thing about this is that the Southern University Law Center is part of the Southern University system, which is the only historically black college university system in the world. Now, the Southern University Law Center and Southern University, the flagship campus in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, uh, are sit on the same campus, right? The law school sits inside of Southern University on their campus. So I graduated with a law degree from Southern University Law Center and graduated with an MBA from the Southern University College of Business, which is part of the graduate school at Southern University. And it got me thinking when I went to the Southern University Law Center that even though Southern University Law Center was created as a law school for black students, because in the 1940s, black students were not allowed to go to LSU. They were not allowed to go to Tulane. They were not allowed to go to Tulane, LSU, or Loyola, right? So there was a lawsuit that was filed in 1946, if I'm not mistaken, in 1946, uh, by Charles A. Hatfield. And on that lawsuit, you actually see Thurgood Marshall's signature on that lawsuit. And basically, they sued the state of Louisiana and Paul M. Hebert, who the LSU College of Law is actually named after, Paul M. Hebert LSU Law Center. Charles Hatfield, through Thurgood Marshall and other black attorneys that were here in Louisiana, sued so that there could be a law school for black students, because under separate but equal, you had to provide separate but equal facilities. So instead of allowing black students to come to LSU Law Center, the state of Louisiana said, "Hey, we're just going to allow you to create Southern University Law Center." Now, that was in 1947. Think about that. That LSU Law Center had been in operation for probably about 50 years. Um, Tulane had been in operation for maybe about 80 years by that time, and either Loyola or Tulane had been in operation by 80 years, and the other one was in operation for at least like 100, 120 years. So that meant that there were, 100 year, anywhere from like an 80 year, 100 year head start that all these white folks had on black people who wanted to be lawyers. So now, when you look at HBCUs were created because black students were not allowed to go to the state-funded schools that their tax dollars provided for. They were not allowed to go to those schools. And now, when we look at Trump's attack on DEI, right, diversity, equity, and inclusion, we often think that it's going to affect and hurt black folks, and probably in some way, shape, form, or fashion. But would you believe that at the Southern University Law Center, when I went from 2014 to 2000, or 2014, 2013 to 2017, that I, as a black man, a black male student, was a minority in my own institution. What do I mean by that? You had the largest group that was there were black women, right, which is a good thing. Then white women, white men, and then black men. Black men were the smallest group. There were more white men and more white women at an historically black college university law center than there were black men at that institution. At an institution that was designed for black people, right? For an institution that was historically designed for black people. When you fast forward into 2013, it was not an institution that did not have black people as its primary customer, as the primary beneficiary of the education. So when I look at these DEI initiatives, I'm like, who's the biggest beneficiary? You see white women, right? You see white women as the biggest beneficiaries. Oh, here it is. Here it is that in 2013, 2014, 2015, the school prided itself as being the most diverse institution, diverse law center in the nation. And I'm sitting over there like, that's funny that we pride our diversity, but what made us diverse was that you allowed white folks to come to the school. And not only did you allow white folks to come to the school, you allowed white folks who could not get into LSU, who could not get into Tulane, who could not get into Loyola to come to the school. It wasn't like Southern University was their first choice. That's the thing. Um, it was interesting to see that when Southern University Law Centers, uh, uh, Southern University Law Center students would try to go to study at the LSU Law Center. The LSU Law Center put up notes and put up pictures saying, "Oh, Southern students are not allowed to be here." And it's like, well, my tax dollars, my tuition is paying for it. There is an agreement between Southern University and LSU that LSU students can take classes at Southern University, a consortium agreement, and Southern University students can take classes at LSU, right? But when you look at the racist history, of Louisiana, and now to see that an HBCU prides itself on being the most diverse institution, but diversity in Louisiana means that you're allowing white folks in. And I don't have anything against white folks, But what I do have a problem is when programs that are supposed to be designed to actually have more black folks included who were structurally excluded, right? Who were structurally excluded. Now, um, you have totally defeated the purpose because now you have redefined what diversity, equity, and inclusion actually means. Diversity and equity and inclusion in a in the HBCU context now means that you allow more white students in. Right? Once again, I'm not having an issue with white folks, but I want to make it clear about what these programs of diversity, equity, inclusion, who they were actually supposed to benefit, and then to look at who they actually benefited, who it was designed to benefit versus who's actually the biggest beneficiaries of it. So, one of the things that I talked about was about the gentrification of our HBCUs. At an HBC, and you don't see it on the undergrad campuses as much as you see it on the graduate campuses and in the professional schools. When you go to the professional schools and you see, oh, these aren't students who really wanted to be at these institutions. Why? Because the stigma against HBCUs are that they're you don't get as good of an education, that the networks aren't as good, right? There's these negative stigmas against HBCU professional schools. But what's funny is that the best trial lawyers come out of Southern University. Um, some of the best dentists and best doctors come out of Meharry University, right? And Howard University. Some of the best engineers come out of Southern University. In fact, Southern University Nursing School was voted #1 in the nation, a best nursing school in the nation by U.S. News, right? So you see how there's these stigmas, but also that prior to receiving these designations, that many of the students that go there that aren't black are there because they could not go anywhere else. Like when you look at the white students, the white students did not want to be at Southern University. And once again, this is in Louisiana, right? So there is there the racist history of the Deep South, man, is something that people on the East Coast really don't understand, and people on the West Coast kind of know about but really don't understand. It's only until you actually get there and you're in it and you feel it and you see it. So when I look at these DEI initiatives, I'm like, okay, well, how's this going to affect HBCUs, right? Is it going to affect the funding? Because technically, the DEI initiatives at HBCUs, DEI initiatives benefit everybody who isn't black. There were white students that were getting diversity scholarships at Southern University. That's something that they don't talk about. So once again, when we talk about DEI, when we talk about HBCUs, and we're like, oh, it's going to affect HBCUs. Yes, in some ways, but when you talk to the students who are able to, like myself, who are able to zoom out and see it from the 30,000-foot view, you realize like, oh man, how are these students getting diversity scholarships, and it was supposed to be for black folks? So yeah. Uh, but yeah, those were my thoughts. It said, Lady and Mauve said, "Greetings. I thought about if med and vet school students wanted to be there or it was a backup choice." That's a great question, Lady and Mauve. What happens is the usually the HBCUs are their backup. Is not their first choice. It's usually not their first choice. Do you know their case? That's interesting. It's usually not their usually first choice. How do I know that? From talking to the students, talking to the white students that would go to the schools. Oh, well, I applied here, I applied here, I applied here. This was my first choice, blah, blah, blah. And then when you go to the folks at Southern, they were like, Southern was my only choice. Southern was where I wanted to go. Very rarely do you ever hear that come from a white student's mouth saying that Southern was where they wanted to be. It usually was like, I wanted to go, why'd you pick Southern? Oh, well, it's least expensive. Okay, all right, I get that. Right? I can get that. But um, it was just it was an interesting experience when I was at Southern University Law Center and seeing that, and then just seeing the way in which, folks talked about the university. And, me and some of my colleagues, right, we have major issues with Southern University, and especially with some of the how the school was administered during that time. But, you know, we as black folks, we're doing a lot of worrying. We're doing a lot of worrying about unnecessary things. Get your chili up. Go get your chicken. Go get your money. Go get them bags. Secure the bag. Don't worry about anything else. Right? But yeah. I just wanted to open that up. Open it up for public comment. Zach Ahmed 40, you've been quite vocal. Let's see if you want to come on up. I'm inviting folks up. Let's see. Love to hear y'all's perspective. So yeah, Zaka, I see you in the comments. Would love to hear your perspective versus just having to read it through the comments. So while I'm waiting on them, just we don't need to be worried. I remember when I was in law school. I was judging the administrators. Dr. Ray Belton was the chancellor and president of Southern University at the time, and I was real critical of when all the HBCU presidents went to go meet with Trump, and it was like, you guys talked all this trash about Trump, and now you guys are going to go meet with him. And you know what I said? I thought there was soft shoeing and all that, but as I started to think about it, I was like, they're supposed to go and meet with the president. They're supposed to go and meet with the most powerful person in the United States, who is over the executive department of the United States, who is over the Department of Education of the United States, where they receive their funding. They're supposed to go meet with these people. They're supposed to go meet with this person. So then I was like, interesting. So why are all these black folks in uproar, right? Some folks that said that Trump only did it for as a photo op, blah blah blah. I mean, when I met with President Trump, I brought that up. I was like, I brought up about the fact about him providing funding to HBCUs, and he was like, you're the only person that's ever acknowledged that. But Zach, I'm looking forward to you coming on up. Sent you an invite. It just seems like you just keep asking questions, but not actually coming on up. And if you want to come on up, just request it. Just request to come on up, and I'll bring you up. For those of you that are unfamiliar with who I am, Dr. Jamar Montgomery, your favorite rapper's favorite political consultant, Mr. 3 Degrees. Mr. 3 Degrees. I don't have on my watches, but Doc, aka Two Watches. Two Watch Doc. Started college at 11 years old. Started full time at 14. Graduated at 19 with my bachelor's in mechanical engineering. Went on to work for the United States Navy. I was the youngest weapon systems engineer in the United States Navy's history. While I was there, I moonlighted for the NAACP as chair of legal redress. My mentor encouraged me to come out and go to law school. Ended up doing that. Started law school because I'm a glutton for punishment. I got my MBA. So graduated with my law degree and my MBA. I went on to teach political science at Southern University Shreveport, practiced law as a juvenile public defender in Caddo Parish, ran for United States Senate in the state of Louisiana in 2020. That led me to on the road for politics and advising political candidates, congressional candidates, all the way to the point that Kanye West gave me a call and asked me to advise him during his meeting with President Trump in 2022. Most people talk about Nick Fuentes. They rarely talk about Dr. Jamar Montgomery, who was there. Nick Fuentes was an add-on. He wasn't actually supposed to be there. Um, After that, meeting with UN ambassadors, all the way to accompanying President Biden in Hiroshima, Japan during the G7. Um, so my experience, to speaking at the World Economic Forum, during the World Economic Forum 3 years in a row. So, once again, this is just give you guys a little background of who I am. I got my engineering degree from Cal State LA, so I went to a PWI for undergrad and then went to HBCU for grad school. So being able to see the differences between going from a PWI to an HBCU and the also going from a PWI in California to an HBCU in the Deep South, right? So yeah, those just give you guys a little bit of my experience and a little bit of my background, so you understand where this is coming from. While Zach Ahmed trolls on my page, it's all good. But yeah, just wanted to provide that. I need to actually get ready for a podcast that I'm getting ready to be on. So nobody else joining, but want to give my thoughts on DEI and HBCUs, and yeah, the gentrification of HBCUs. Hopefully, President Trump's executive orders on DEI and DEI policies at educational institutions helps to stop the gentrification of HBCUs. So yeah, y'all be blessed. Y'all take care. Thank you for the likes and thank everybody for joining in. Y'all take care.